Hello, reporter room investigators. Come on in, come on in. If you're just following me from the Brian Kohlberger case, I have a really packed show on the Chris Watts too. I ran out of time on Brian Kohlberger, so for the members only live stream, we're going to have a lot of new information still to go through, and I will put the rest in a video for everyone. So thank you so much for joining me. We're going to be talking about Chris Watts and his alleged relationship with Dylan Tallman. Now, you might know Dylan Tallman. He wrote a book together with Chris Watts. Now, he is denying this relationship, but I'll just give you the information. You guys can decide. We're going to talk about NK. Did Chris Watts pledge his love to her? Was he giving her signs on August 13th, the day he took out his whole family? I think he was. I'm curious what you guys think. What role did NK's friend Jim play in August 13th and in the weeks thereafter? And we're going to talk about the divine intervention that happened in this case, in my opinion. My name is Jessica Della Davies. I'm an investigative journalist, and my job is to investigate crimes, crime scenes, and potential suspects and share with you how to do the same thing. If you have not subscribed to Reporter Room, it's free. It's free, and it helps me out so much. Like, share, leave a comment, and know that everything that I'm sharing with you is my opinion, and feel free to do your own research. So please subscribe, smash that thumbs up button, drop me a comment, and come on up and talk to me. So let's get started on this. Let me see. Oh, it looks like I got some people showing up. I want to welcome Lori Dart for becoming a Reporter Room member. Hey, Charlotte. Hi, Njaz. Thank you so much for modding today, Njaz. Hi, Princess Elsa. Thank you for modding today. Hi, Susan. Hi, Leslie. Thanks for modding today. Hi, Esmeralda. Good to see you. Hi, Brother Mike. Thank you so much for modding today. All right. So come on in. Tell me where you're from. Hi, Kathleen. And let's go ahead. And Michelle's here. Hey, again. People are just finding their way over from the other live stream. Okay. So this is kind of crazy. All right. So we know Chris Watts began trashing Shanann, trying to blame this all on her. Again, we saw him just completely willing to throw Shanann under the bus. And now we see him, together with Dylan Tallman. Now, Chris Watts, we know he confessed for doing away with Shanann, Bella, and Cece in their Shanann in their home on August 13th of 2018 after she returned from Arizona on a business trip. He then drove to his job site and disposed of her. He also did away with Bella and Cece. I will not be showing their pictures in today's video, but he hid them in these large oil tanks that are also called batteries. And his alleged motive was his mistress, Nichol Kessinger. Now, in letters, Chris Watts shared most of his thoughts with the guy that was sharing a cell right next to him named Dylan Tallman. So he was a fellow inmate at Wisconsin prison who befriended Chris Watts. However, after Chris Watts backed out of a plan to co-write a prayer book, Dylan Tallman released a series of 3 books titled The Cell Next Door. Now, according to the letters, Chris Watts confided to Dylan Tallman that his marriage, so Dylan is a guy, his marriage to Shanann was unhappy. He mentioned she was busy with her job and leaving him as the primary caregiver to his daughters. I find this almost laughable because Shanann was in North Carolina with both girls and pregnant and working. But okay, Chris is the victim in his own mind. He claims that he started attracting attention from women after he lost weight and working out in 2017, and he met Nichol Kessinger, we know, at work. He said, quote, "She was everything my wife wasn't like with me. She was nice, not just a control freak." So again, just trashing Shanann. We could make decisions together. But he turned on NK also and described her as a Jezebel to the New York Post, and worse. He said worse than that. He used the word harlot. He said her flattering speech was like drops of honey that pierced my heart and soul. Little did I know all of her I'm not even going to say this, but Dylan said that Chris Watts gave him a letter, a letter from, you know how these women write to these inmates. Her name is Krista Rochello, and she had written to Chris Watts, and that Chris Watts, I guess, traded her this letter in exchange for some snacks. So I just wanted to show you the guy on the screen that's on your left. That's going to be Dylan, and then of course you know Chris Watts. So let's dig into this snacks. Okay, so this is wild, and we're going to talk about Jim in just a second. So Chris Watts is already in jail. He got 5 life sentences for doing away with Shanann, Bella, Cece, which he admitted he did it. But he got in trouble. Listen to this, you guys. Remember Trent Bolt that came forward and nobody believed him? Well, I don't know, because you guys can tell me what you think. He got in trouble with Dylan Tallman. They were both disciplined in July after Chris Watts's undergarment and a jar of Vaseline was found in Dylan's cell. That's not the only thing that was in there, you guys. And the discovery forced the prison authorities to separate these two, who had grown close as they served out their sentences in adjoining rooms. But Krista Rochella, she's Tallman's fiance, told the Daily Mail, and that's my sourcing on this, in an exclusive interview, that Chris Watts and Dylan were just good friends who found each other in prison and are definitely not together in another kind of way. I'm watching my words in case you have little ones in the room. I can prove that my fiance is not, and neither is Chris Watts, she said. She said, I don't believe the force of circumstance, because they were locked up, led them to have any type of contact. So she is planning to get married to Dylan Tallman as soon as she is released. And that is Dylan. And this is Krista. So she wrote to Chris Watts originally, and I'm just setting the table here because we're going to get into Nichol Kessinger and Jim, but I just want to set the table for Chris Watts a little bit here. She said that she thinks that Chris Watts was railroaded into his guilty plea, that he didn't do away with Shanann and Bella and Cece and Nico. Of course, we know he did. She said she watched the videos of Chris Watts and his children and his wife. It was really difficult for me to believe clinically that he was capable of committing a crime like that. And I think that's so interesting, because we're seeing a similar dynamic happen with a small faction of people in the Brian Kohlberger case, right? We're seeing people that are, just not feeling like they, that he could possibly be capable of doing anything, because he just seems so nice. And we saw the same dynamic play out in the O.J. Simpson case, although he was found not guilty. Similar dynamic that played out in the O.J. Simpson case. It's always, they just seem too nice. Ted Bundy. So she refers to herself as Krista Tallman, even though she has not legally changed her name. So she traveled to Wisconsin to meet him 3 times before the pandemic shut down the visits. And then she relied on Zoom phone calls and meetings and more than 100 letters. So this is the conduct report. And this is what they found in the room. They found, this belonged to Chris Watts. They found cocoa butter lotion, secret deodorant, skin cream, body powder, petroleum jelly, a black Sharpie marker, a pair of boxer shorts. These were all, they were labeled with Chris Watts's name on them. So why were these all in the room of Dylan's? Why were these in Dylan's room? So they got in trouble. But just seems like, I don't know, maybe Trent Bolt wasn't lying. I don't know. What do you guys think? But these are all pictures of Dylan. This is Dodge Correctional. Then she talks about how wonderful Dylan is. And how those two are not together. So she just adamantly denies it. All right, so I just wanted to set the table so when I talk about Dylan Tallman later, you'll know who I'm talking about. So let me put this up instead. Okay. All right, so let's now dig into Nichol Kessinger. Jim, what role did Jim play? Okay, so we know that Nichol Kessinger, and let me put this video up. Let me see if I have this one open. Yeah. Okay, so we know that Nichol Kessinger.
He moved on.
We know that Nichol Kessinger met with Agent Kobach and that he asked her to verify where she was on October 13th of 2018. Now, NK said that Jim was at her house when she got home and that he could confirm her arrival. So then when the agent asked NK to confirm her alibi and put a little bit more pressure on NK, she said, and let me get to this 1854 timestamp. Oop. All right. Almost there.
Like my wife's missing, or
No,
anything.
nothing,
Okay.
nothing.
And you knew he wasn't coming to the office because he had told you that Sunday night.
Yeah, and then he goes, and so like they're only in the office for the morning. Like
Right.
some days it's longer than others, but I would say by a maximum of 7:30 every single morning they're all gone, and they don't come back unless they have like a meeting or something that they have to attend. So like not seeing him for the rest of the day is not like an unnormal thing.
Okay.
Like, but like I'm saying, like we don't really. The only reason we interact was kind of like by an off chance thing. Like I don't work with him.
Mm-hmm.
So he, yeah, we talked like randomly throughout the day, but it was really sporadic and he seemed pretty busy. So we didn't talk too much. Like I said, didn't put too much thought into it. It happens all the time. Waited till about 3:45, then sent that text to me. And yes, he does know that I will be home at that point or getting home.
Did you give Mark Jim's information?
No, I would really not like to involve him in this.
Okay.
He does not know about this. He doesn't know any of this is occurring.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what law enforcement verified as far as her alibi with Jim, but I do know that he knew about Chris Watts because he was at the sand dunes when Chris and Nichol went to the sand dunes for that camping trip. Jim was there. And if you recall, this is why I wanted to talk about Dylan Tallman and the allegations with him and Chris Watts, what the prison guards thought when they found all this stuff, petroleum jelly, boxer shorts, all that, cocoa butter lotion, and that all belonged to Chris Watts in Tallman's cell. You know, was there another person involved in this? Remember what Nichol was also searching out on the Corn with a P website. She was searching out three-way, right? But listen, so the agent sitting here in the lower left of your screen, her dad is in the lower right, and then NK's in the middle.
Like I was
So
literally
he knows certainly through the media that something's occurred.
Yeah, he's
with
like
Chris.
out of town. He's probably has
Okay.
no idea. He doesn't know
Okay.
who Chris is. Like he's not. I do not know.
So he's just a friend of yours
yes,
that
he does not.
was
need be
coming to
dragged
your
into this.
apartment and doesn't know anything about Chris. Does he know anything about Chris?
No,
Okay.
nothing.
That is such a lie because he was at the sand dunes with them.
Absolutely
And we've
not.
known Jim for years and years.
You're not dating him or anything like that.
No,
It's just a
he's
friend.
like one of my very good friends. Like my dad knows him. He's a great guy. He works out of state a lot. So when he's in town, we hang out. But when he's in town and he's off of work to save time, so I give him the key to my house. One, because I trust him and he's one of my best friends. And two, because sometimes he will just meet me there because I'll be like, hey, I'm getting off of work. And then if I get stuck in traffic or something, he ends up like sitting outside of my apartment waiting for me to get off of work. So I'm like, here's the key. And like my dog loves him and stuff. So no, he's not
So he's just a
involved
family
with it.
friend.
Yes, I don't even
The only
want
reason
to
I
be
ask,
dragged into this.
and I'm not really concerned about your location. I think we already have your cell phone records. At some point, did Mark ask you to supply? Did they ask for consent to get cell phone records? That'll probably be done by warrant. If we
Isn't that
wanted,
what you just did?
no, what I'm talking about is your movement
Oh.
by GPS or by cell phone tower.
Okay, so Jim had a key to her house. And guess who else had a key to her house? Chris Watts. So I'm not, I don't know what was really going on here, but it does seem kind of odd, in my opinion. Let me know if you have a different take on it, but let's continue on together. So NK did her first interview. So this is the interview with this is Agent Kobach that she's talking to. And then, she is whining right away to leave Jim alone and refuses to give his contact information to him. But he tells her that they're going to be able to track her movements with her cell phone. And then she's going to hem and haw about not turning her cell phone. And then he asks her about a heavier set man in photographs that they were boarding with, right? When they were doing the snowboarding, but it was sandboarding on those sand dunes. And that's when Nichol says the picture is of her friend Jim. So Jim was camping with them and snowboarding or sandboarding with them at the sand dune. So he was there. Why was he there? And we only know that Nichol was at the Saratoga Trail home of Chris and Shanann Watts on August the 13th around 6 a.m. because of a phone call with Jim. So what was Jim doing with NK and Chris Watts at the sand dunes? Was he really just a friend? Or was there something, considering what we know about Chris Watts and Dylan Tolman, was there something else going on here? Something beyond just that? Allegedly, in my opinion, I'm just asking, I don't know. But so let's talk, we're going to talk about the divine intervention in just a minute, but stay with me. But so we know that Chris Watts is really an awful person. Any sense of being a decent person went out the window when he did away with Shanann, Bella, and Cece. And then when he put Shanann, he had done away with her, wrapped her in a sheet, put her on the floor of his truck, and put his two daughters in the seats above it. They had to sit above their mother. How horrifying that would have been for Bella and Cece while they drive all the way to Survey 319. I mean, just horrendous. We know he buried Shanann in a shallow grave face down. He put her in head first with her backside sticking up. I think this was meant to humiliate her. And we know that Nico, came out after that. And then he took his two daughters, Bella and Cece, and did away with them and dumped them into two separate oil tanks that are also called battery. And I'm going to tie this up in a bow in just a second. So then around 7:40 a.m., Chris texts Shanann's phone to try to, give himself cover, right? He's trying to create an alibi for himself. If you take the kids somewhere, please let me know where they are at. So I'm just picturing him standing next to these oil tanks where he's just thrown Bella and Cece, where he's just thrown Shanann into a hole, and then sending that text message. Just absolutely cold as ice. No decency, not one little piece of decency in his body. So why did he leave that bed sheet out and not bury that with Shanann? Was something else supposed to happen at Survey 319, and did he simply run out of time? Well, let's go through what Chris Watts was doing that day, because I think he was sending messages covertly to NK. Now, I'm going to tell you why I think that. At 7:43, he got a text from one of his coworkers, and it just says he's at Survey 319, and then he took a picture. And then shortly after, he phoned Shanann again. I think this was to establish his alibi. Of course, we know this call went unanswered because Shanann was there at Survey 319 in a hole. At 8:26 a.m., Chris Watts did an internet search for the Primrose School where Bella and Cece attended. He told the staff that they would not be attending school there anymore. And to me, this is just so dumb. It just shows you that as smart as he thought he was, this was so dumb, because this is going to set off huge red flags with law enforcement. The fact that he's canceling his daughter's school the same day they disappear. And then he makes this another crazy phone call, just dumb, I should say, to a realtor named Ann Meadows and talks to her and talks about selling the house. Again, this would have raised huge red flags with law enforcement that he's talking about. His daughters aren't going to be back at school anymore, and he's putting his house up for sale. And yet his daughters and Shanann are all missing. And we know this did raise red flags with law enforcement because Agent Galbraith reached out to Ann Meadows 2 days after, on August the 15th, so 2 days after the crimes were committed, and learned that they had talked, because normally Ann Meadows had talked with Shanann, so she thought it was unusual that Chris Watts had picked up the phone to call her. They had been talking about selling the house, but not had done it. And all of her conversations and contact had been with Shanann. And the fact that Shanann wasn't looped in at all struck her as odd. So then at 10 a.m., Chris Watts then searches on his phone for the lyrics to the Metallic song Battery. And this is where the oil tanks being called Battery is really significant. And it just shows you what a monster, in my opinion, Chris Watts is. So here's another creepy thing. He shares the song lyrics with Nichol Kessinger. And what is NK's response? She wanted to know what that song meant to Chris. Now, in my opinion, she knew what that song meant to him. I think this was like a way of him showing, in my opinion, allegedly, that he was choosing her, because I do think there was an ultimatum given in that 111-minute phone call that she told law enforcement she couldn't remember anything about it, even though she could remember all these other events that happened way before 4th of July, counting Chris's macros, helping him search for an apartment, how much the mortgage was on Chris and Shannann's home. She could remember all that, but she couldn't remember the 111-minute phone call that she had just 72 hours prior to sitting down with this agent. So then at 10:42, just 12 minutes later, Chris calls the Westin Snowmass Resort and talks about booking a vacation. So we know Shanann is not with us any longer. So he would have been vacationing with Nichol, which means he would have known that she was going to go with him, in my opinion. So why this call is so significant is if you look back at Dylan Tallman's book and the soulmate that we just talked about, according to Dylan, and he wrote the book The Cell Next Door because he was in a cell next door to Chris, that NK reportedly or allegedly told Chris Watts to choose between, this is what Dylan also says, between his family and her. So this apparently was what Chris Watts had told Dylan Tallman. Now, the problem is Chris Watts has no credibility because he's lied so many times. So NK really didn't know anything. If she didn't really know anything about what Chris's plan was to do away with his whole family, then why was he making plans to take her on a getaway? Why was she searching for wedding dresses just a couple days before? Why, when he told her about finding Shanann's wedding ring, and his wife's just missing at this point from what she said, is she telling him to pawn that wedding ring? I mean, huge red flags. What do you guys think? Are you watching closely? Meanwhile, Shanann's mom is phoning Chris Watts because Shanann did not show up to her doctor's appointment that morning. She had an important doctor's appointment and she didn't show up for it. And Shanann's mom is frantic because Nicole Atkinson went to the doctor's appointment and found out Shanann never went there, and she would have never missed a baby checkup. So her mom knew something was wrong. Her best friend, Nicole, that's why I call NK. So Nicole Atkinson is her friend, and NK is Nichol Kessinger, the mistress. So at 12:16, Chris Watts gets a text message from his friend Josh Rosenberg, who says, "Hey, bro, Cassie asked me to ask you if you've heard from Shanann today. I guess her and Nikki, that's Nicole Atkinson, can't get hold of her. Have you heard from her?" And we've all seen the photo of Nichol Kessinger kneeling with the sunflowers. And she was, known to have loved sunflowers. She had them, in photographs. And what was Chris Watts doing that morning, August 13th, with Bella and Cece in the oil tanks? He's sending pictures to Nichol Kessinger of sunflowers, of flowers that he took at the Survey 319 site. And I believe this was his way of letting her know, I chose you. Because I do think there was an ultimatum given on the 111-minute phone call. So was this him letting her know that he chose her? In my opinion, it was him sending her a sign. And that is why Nichol Kessinger destroyed all of the text messages. That is why she tried to destroy her SIM card, in my opinion, allegedly. So Chris Watts, everything, is just getting worse for him by the minute. He's out there taking pictures of sunflowers to send to Nichol, sending her the lyrics to the Battery song. And meanwhile, Nicole Atkinson is at the door, and he's able to see on his cell phone app that she is trying to let herself inside his house. And the only reason she couldn't get in is because he had latched that front door from the inside, which is another reason why we know that Shanann didn't leave from that front door, is neighbor Nate's video. So Chris decides he's going to return the call to Nicole Atkinson at 12:27 because I think he just realizes she's not going away. She's at his door. She's on the phone with Shanann's mom. Everybody's calling and texting him, wanting to know where Shanann is. Now, at this point, they're not thinking that Shanann and Bella Cece have been done away with. They thought that Shanann, had gotten low blood sugar, that she was stressed out, she hadn't been eating, and was probably passed out in the house. That's what they were thinking. So, I think Nicole Atkinson is the kind of friend that, everybody would wish to have. And then Chris Watts answers back. This is really fishy too. Cassie, so that Josh, said he was messaging on behalf of Cassie, who's one of Shanann's friends. She said that her shoes and car and everything are at the house. What the heck is going on with you guys? And she would totally shut out everything. It's not like her. This is what Cassie sends to Chris Watts. So Chris Watts texts back. He says, I don't want you to think, he sends her a text, that, Shanann's with friends. And then he says, I don't want you to think I'm a bad person, Cassie. Because of course, as a narcissistic person, he's concerned with his own reputation. This is really common with people who are sociopathic. They do have, not all narcissists are sociopathic, but people who are sociopathic or psychopathic have narcissistic personality traits. And Chris Watts is extremely concerned with his own reputation, telling Cassie he doesn't want her to think he's a bad person. So Cassie claps right back, though. She's not having it. She said, right now, I don't care about you or your relationship or what type of person you are or are not, or what I think of you. I am not trying to be rude when I say that. So she's just not having it. Shanann's mom is not having it. Nicole Atkinson is not having it. And Cassie tells Chris Watts at 1:03 p.m. that Nicole Atkinson is calling the police. And at this point, I think Chris realizes maybe I need to stop taking pictures of sunflowers and Metallica lyrics and maybe get home. And I'm wondering if this is why this sheet got left at Survey 319, because he did end up having to rush back. I just don't think he realized how concerned and alarmed Shanann's family and friends were going to become. And you also will recall that he and Nicole ate at the Lazy Dog the night that Shanann was supposed to come home, the night before she came home. And she had looked up the menu and knew there was no way that Chris was running up a $60 tab by himself. So alarm bells had to be going off for everybody. So what did NK know at this point? The man she's, having an affair with is sending her photographs of sunflowers. Is this a sign of something? He's sending her proof that he's at Survey 319. Why does she need proof that he's there? She's the scheduler. She would have known where he was. Why would she need photographic proof on that day of all days? He's sending her lyrics to the Metallica song, all about the batteries. And we know the oil tanks are called batteries. So things are just going downhill fast for Chris Watts, because by 1:36 p.m., the Frederick Police Department receives a call from Nicole Atkinson for a welfare check at 2825 Saratoga Trail, which is the Watts home. And she's concerned for Shanann, because she knows that Shanann is pregnant and that she has medical conditions, including diabetes and lupus. So she spoke to Detective Baumover, and said that her son had looked at the windows and that they could see that Shanann's vehicle, which was a Lexus, white SUV Lexus, was still parked in the garage, that she could see the girls' car seats were still in the vehicle, and that Shanann's shoes were sitting by the front door. So there was no evidence that she had left that house. And then about 15 minutes after that, the police arrive, and Chris Watts arrives back at the house 15 minutes after law enforcement gets there. So whatever time he thought he was going to have to try to cover up for what he did, he blew it by sending these pictures and song lyrics and just kind of celebrating what he did with NK, in my opinion. I'm not saying she knew for sure. I'm just wondering if, like, how she didn't know. But he's celebrating, and maybe if he wouldn't have been doing all that, maybe he wouldn't have gotten caught. It would have been a harder case to prove. But on the body cam footage of Chris Watts arriving home, you can see neighbor Nate standing near the garage door looking very concerned, because he knew from his camera footage that Shanann had not left the house the entire day, and that Bella, Shanann, and Cece had not been picked up by anyone. So that's a huge plot hole. Huge plot hole. Plot hole 1, the Lexus is still in the garage. Plot hole 2, the girls' car seats are still in the back seat. Plot hole 3, Shanann's shoes are sitting by the front door. Plot hole 4, once the law obtains, gets into the property, Shanann has left a wedding ring behind. Plot hole 5, Shanann has left her purse behind. Plot hole 6, Shanann has left her cell phone behind. So that's not looking good for Chris Watts. But what does NK say when he asks her what to do with his wife's wedding ring? Even though she's just missing at this point, according to NK, she just thinks she's missing. She tells him to pawn it. And then the night of August 13th into the wee hours of August 14th, Chris Watts and NK talk for around 3 hours. There was multiple calls. I think there was like 6 phone calls back and forth between NK. And 3 days later, she's in this interview with Agent Kobach, and he's trying to find out about these calls. And she just characterizes them as short. And of course, the agent knows this is not true. He pushes back and wants to know, what does she mean by short? And again, she characterizes the phone calls as just being a couple of minutes, which again, the agent knows this is not true. But she does talk about Chris Watts lying on the bed without a bed sheet on it. And so there was a FaceTime call, according to NK. And so why, he was in the master bedroom, not in the basement. But she does, he does want to know, what were they talking about? And NK claims she doesn't know what they were talking about that night either. She tap dances around the whole thing. Let me check in with chat. I don't want to ignore chat. Thank you to Njaz for gifting 2 reporter room memberships. This is so nice of you. Thank you so much, Njaz. Let's see who's in here today. Let me see if I can back it up a little bit. Charlotte's here. Njaz is here. Princess Elsa's here. Thank you so much for joining me today. Susan's here. Leslie is here. Thank you for modding today. Esmeralda's here. So Njaz, Brother Mike and Njaz are both our 2 of our head mods. Njaz says she's the number 4, giving it a thumbs up. Yeah, please give it a thumbs up. Let YouTube know I'm doing a G-rated show. So please give this a thumbs up. It does help me with the algorithm. Hi, Kathleen. Hi, Michelle. Come on in and tell me where you're from, you guys. Midwest is here. Cowboy here from Wyoming. Welcome. Welcome, Midwest. Midwest says she's the number 15 to give a thumbs up. Princess Elsa, good reminder. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, please subscribe. It's free. It helps me out. Melissa's here. Las Vegas girl's here. Oh, wow. Good to see you. Joe's here. Yeah, I know, right? And we do have a Reporter Room Facebook group. We discuss all kinds of cases. Brother Mike says, mods, please help in the chat and welcome others. Watch for trolls and remind others to press the thumbs up button. Yeah, Chris Watts is a party boy. Hi, Susan. Susan says there were talks of Chris Watts playing for the other side. Yeah, that was Trent Bolt, right? So now we're So now we find out that he did do this in prison, according, at least that's what the prison guards thought. Now, I'm sure Dylan Tallman will deny it, but his girlfriend definitely denied it. But it does, I mean, that's some very suspicious stuff to have in another somebody else's cell. I'm just saying. So Trent Bolt came forward and everybody thought he was lying, but maybe he wasn't lying. I don't know. Cowboy said Chris Watts seems to be struggling with his identity, probably what he was in the bath. Yeah. Praying about when he was a kid. Leslie says, thank you for gifting a membership and jazz. Where was Jim that night? Yeah, we don't know. We don't know. That's a really important question. Elsa said, oh, that's too bad. It looks like you still have your membership. I still show you as a member. So you're still up there. And Mike says, rejoin. Let me see. Yeah, I think so, Leslie. I think there was. I think that Jim was there on that camping trip. And that's why I wanted to start out with the Dylan Tallman stuff. And you guys, if you're running late, don't ever worry. You can always back the chat up. Yeah, she did. He knew. Virgo says, sounds similar to how Lori Vallow, had her brother helping him. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not saying he did. I just don't know what he knew. But supposedly this was supposed to be her alibi. But she didn't want law enforcement to talk to him. That's for sure. She did not want law enforcement to talk to them at all.
Show where you were, obviously, and I don't want to cause you concern. We want to know where you were that day too. You're dating a man who did some egregious stuff, and we want to show that you were never near him that day. Period.
I mean, you guys can track my
No,
stuff.
yeah, I mean that was something we will have to get a warrant for, anyways. I'm just saying, if we asked for it, would you have any objections to that?
No, you can have
Right.
it.
So.
I'm a pretty boring person.
Well, it sounds like you just went to work that day and then you came home and you were there at 3:45.
Yeah, like give or
Monday.
take like 5 minutes.
Whatever.
But yeah, so 3:45. I meet Jim there. Yeah, I would
And
totally
so
run.
Jim is understand from an investigative point, he could be a person who could say, yeah, I was there at 3:45. He doesn't know Chris. He doesn't know anything.
And we know that's not true. He knew Chris. They went to the sand dunes together. And the agent Kobach knows this. So this is why I think there was an immunity agreement. I think that they didn't know that Chris Watts was going to take a plea. And the DA Rourke decided that he would give her immunity, even though she's lying. Chris Watts knew Jim, and Jim knew Chris Watts.
You could say with one phone call, yeah, she came in at 3:45, done.
Totally.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I don't have to ask anything more than, hi, Chris, my name's Kevin. Or Jim. And I'm not saying you have to give it to you.
And look how she acts when he talks about trying to confirm her alibi. Oh, no. Oh.
Just leave Jim
But
alone.
if
Jim does
at
not need
some
to be wrapped
point-
up in this.
If at some point
Leave Jim alone. Don't confirm my alibi. Don't do that.
I needed Jim's info to, let's say we couldn't find your phone records, would you
You
tell me
can
who
have
Jim
them.
was?
I will give them to you.
Would you tell me who Jim was if I
If
couldn't
you
get him?
had to.
Okay.
I don't really want to
Great.
involve him in this. That's not
Perfect.
fair to him. That's not, no, if I do not have to do that.
That's fine.
Yeah, so anyways, Chris was like, call me.
And this is the 3:45 text.
Yeah, he sent me like a few. I think there was 3 of them, and I don't remember what the other one said, but something about like, yeah, my family's gone, or I don't remember verbatim, but call me when you can, or call me when you have a chance, something to that effect. And so when he told me call me, I was like kind of alerted, where I was like, okay, what's going on, But first when he told me like his family was like not home, that didn't really seem odd to me that his family wasn't home. It was really vague. I'm like, okay, like, are they at the grocery store? Like,
Just remember, she told him to pawn that wedding ring.
elaborate. And so, but he says, call me like it's like an emergency, but then just says they're not there. And so I'm like really like floored by that. Well, not like floored, but just kind of like, he says, call me, so I'm concerned. And then he's really vague. So I'm like, maybe he just wants to talk to me. I don't know. I think it took me a little while to like really process the severity of the situation, just because This is not something that you expect to see every day. And the way that he talked to me made me believe that this is not what was going on at all.
Sure. So he's sending her pictures of the sunflower. He's sending her proof that he's at Survey 319. All those sunflower photos that he had taken, he sent to her. He's sending her the lyrics to the battery song when he just put his daughters into those battery oil tanks. And she's telling him to pawn his wedding ring, but she doesn't know anything. And she can't remember the 111-minute phone call they had just 72 hours before. And she can barely remember what they talked about the night that she knew his family was missing. She characterizes that as being a couple of minutes, and it's actually six calls that total close to 3 hours.
Okay, so you make a phone call to him and you guys have a conversation.
I did. I stepped outside.
This is 3:45.
Ish. I mean, well, like, I think I actually interacted with Jim for like probably a good 15 or 20 minutes. I mean, he's my guest. He's in my house. So I don't think I called him right away, but like, I mean, I'm trying to balance the fact that I have my friend here and then Chris is saying that something needs to be addressed. But to me, it didn't sound like an emergency. I mean, it's all the time. Like, people aren't home right now, you know, so it wasn't like, oh my God, I have to take this call.
It didn't register as being critical.
No. I mean,
Oh no, nothing to see here. No, it didn't register as anything.
it was the way he said it. And I was like, okay. So I remember hanging out with Jim for a while, and then I stepped outside and I made a call like out on my back patio, and I called him and he didn't answer the phone. And then he texted me back. Oh no, did he answer the phone? I don't remember. I think he missed my call and then he called me back, or he just answered. Either way, it was a very short talk to him where he was just like, I have to go. The cops are here. And I don't remember if he said that on the phone or over text.
That's okay.
I'm so tired.
That's fine. You don't
But
need
either
to
way,
different.
like,
It's
the
just
cop-
This was just, I mean, she's talking to them on the 16th. This all happened on the 13th.
context.
Yeah, I mean, you guys will figure it out. The cops are here. And I'm just like, all right. And then I remember we were like,
She doesn't want to know why. Just all right. No question why they're there.
like we were texting, but I was like hanging out with my company. So it wasn't like a nonstop text. It was just kind of like I would check my phone every once in a while and we would communicate with each other.
You think that this woman who knew how much their mortgage payment was, that was hunting for apartments for him, that was looking for wedding dresses for herself, wouldn't have asked him why the police were at his house when his family was missing? That didn't occur to her? The woman who doesn't want her alibi to be confirmed by Jim?
And he was just saying like they weren't there and that her friend Nikki was there and that her friend Nikki had called the cops. And I'm like, why would this girl call the cops? And like, I honestly do not remember the order of operations on all of this, but I'm pretty sure the majority of our conversation that night until my friend Jim left the house, which was probably pretty late, I don't even know what time, like 9 or 10, was all via text. So you should have this via text. Like,
Okay.
I don't think we started talking again on the phone.
And just remember, Nichol Kessinger tried to delete all her text messages and destroy her SIM card. So don't confirm my alibi with Jim. Doesn't ask why the police are at the house initially. And then you can confirm all this with text messages, which I deleted, and SIM card, which I've tried to destroy.
Until like after my company left. And he was like, I don't know. He just started like giving me details about stuff, and I don't remember what order, but he was saying like Nikki was really upset and that the cops were there and that they were like searching the house. And I was just like, what? You know, like what? Why? And he was telling me that they had like had a disagreement or something like that. And then he told me like she was going to go to a friend's house. And I was like, okay, well, maybe she left, you know, maybe she just like went to her friends. And then I think I don't remember, but I think he was the one that told me that her cell phone and her purse were still there. I think he told me that.
He told you her cell phone and purse were still there?
I think he did. I don't remember.
What's the significance of that in your mind at that time?
At that point, I thought this woman was really trying to get out of this house.
Okay.
That's what I thought. Because he said that they'd had a disagreement, and I was just like, okay, well, I mean, I leave my cell phone at
When
home.
he said disagreement, what did he tell you what it was about, or?
Not at that point. Not at that point. So,
And she didn't ask? Do you guys believe she didn't ask? Because I'm not buying that.
again, like you guys are gonna have to check these texts because it's all like my brain feels
That's
like
okay.
mashed potato right now. But I remember
It's not even 7 o'clock. It's like 1 minute to 7 on their time. But she doesn't remember.
him saying that, and I'm just thinking like, well, maybe she was in a rush, you know, like maybe she was just like, I'm going to my friends. I'm leaving my cell phone here because I don't want you calling me. I don't want anyone else calling me. I mean, there are days where like when I'm outside of work, I will just shut my phone off. I just do it. And it's like my way of getting peace. So to me, that, I mean, like it was weird that it wasn't even that weird to me that she left her phone just because I leave my phone, but it was weird to me that she left her purse. But knowing the fact that that girl was like always on her phone, then yeah, I guess it is kind of odd.
Like she lived on her phone, I think,
yeah.
pretty much is my understanding of her and the phone. So I don't know if you knew that
I did.
until prior to the media stuff or just from Chris.
And she would have known this, right? She would have known this because Shanann was calling when Chris was at her house. So she would have known that Shanann lived on her phone.
I did.
So did that strike you as odd? But you're thinking maybe she just left.
I just thought she needed to like get away from the situation. I mean, that didn't seem that awkward to me that a couple that is going through separation would be like, I need to leave. I just need some space. Like it didn't even like process. I was like, okay, like give her some space, you know? And on that note,
Give her some space and pawn her wedding ring.
to when he was in, we're gonna jump back for just a second.
It's okay.
I had a thought. So when he was coming back from North Carolina, that was when he officially told me we're gonna get a divorce and we're gonna put the house up for sale. Like he told me they were separating and they were like gonna put the house up for sale, but they hadn't done it yet. And then when he got back from North Carolina, that was when he was like, it was like a sealed deal.
Okay.
And the reason that is of significance is because at some point over the weekend, I don't remember when, he told me that they were putting the house up. I don't know if it was they were putting it up on Monday, like the day they went missing, or if it was that they were calling the realtor to verify some stuff so they could put it up that week. Like I don't quite remember. I just remember like the house.
She doesn't remember. Again, this is only the 16th. Shanann disappeared on the 13th, but she doesn't remember.
House was supposed to be like on the market like that week.
Did he name a realtor ever?
Yeah, he did. And I don't remember her name. It was a female.
Okay.
And I don't remember her name like
That's
at all. I was trying to think of that for you guys not too long
Is that
ago.
a company? You got the company name?
No, he never gave me that. He like gave me her name and it was the same name twice. He gave it to me once when he was in North Carolina and then once the other time. Because I remember asking, I was like, who's that? Because he's like,
So she knew the name of their realtor, but she doesn't ask him why his wife would leave the house without her purse or phone. Do you really believe for a second that she wouldn't have asked him why? Because I just am not buying that. Let me know if you have a different take on it. Susan says, he asked, well, I don't believe that conversation even happened. It's all lies to fill up space and time in the interview. The police know she's lying. Yeah. And this is what's, why I think there was an immunity deal. Because at the very least, it was definitely would have been an obstruction charge. I think. That girl. Yeah. Distancing language. Jennifer says, and he aggressively attacks Shanann in her interviews. And Susan says, this really triggers me. Yeah, me too. It really, it's concerning. It's alarming that this is how things went. So she even relates to Agent Kobach that Chris Watts had told her that he had to wash the kids' sheets because they smelled. Again, She doesn't ask Chris Watts why the kids' sheets might smell that night, the night that they disappear. Instead, she talks about, what a thorough house cleaner he is. So then the agent Kobach begins reading off cell phone calls between Nichol Kessinger, NK, and Chris Watts. And she tells him that she doesn't know when she talked to him, and obviously she's caught in a lie because she tells him it's just for a couple of minutes. Now the FBI or the CBI that, the agent Kobach knows that she's been talking. It's hours, not minutes that they took. And it's multiple, 6 different phone calls. But she repeatedly denies that she knows what she said on these phone calls, just like she denied knowing what she said on the 111-minute phone call that took place the night that Shanann was returning home from Arizona and the hours leading up to her being done away with by Chris Watts. So I think there's a lot of suspicious behavior, in my opinion. We're going to look at neighbor Nate's video next. I do want to say a big thank you to our producers, and Jazz, Sasha Angel, George Brown, Pepper, and Christy Valentine. Thank you to our channel members. And we are doing a members only live stream after this. If you want to follow me over for that, that will be next. We're going to talk about the Brian Kohlberger, because I have a bunch of stuff I didn't even get through on the Brian Kohlberger live. So we have more stuff to dig into on that. But thank you so much to all of our channel members. I really appreciate your helping me with this channel, for your being an important part of this channel. And if you're planning to watch the Brian Kohlberger case, I'm going to be airing that trial on this channel. So please subscribe and hit the notification bell, and we can watch it together as a true crime community. And I also want to do super thanks and coffee gratitude from our last 2 live streams. And thank you for your gifted channel memberships and Jazz. All right, so let's continue on, because NK, and then we're going to go to neighbor Nate next. But let's just finish up with NK, because so I just wanted to show you the discrepancies related to Jim. I wanted to show you about Chris's alleged relationship with Dylan Tallman. And then think about the fact that he was away camping with Nichol Kessinger and Jim. And why was she so anxious for law enforcement not to check? And then when you think of the corn with a P that she was Googling, that she was looking up, with three people, some of the stuff that it was really some pretty awful things that she was looking at. I mean, you do you, NK, I'm not judging you, but okay, maybe I'm judging you for what happened to Shanann, Bella, and Cece, and for cheating with a married man. I'll judge you for that, but I'm not going to judge the rest of it. You do you, but it just makes me wonder, the fact that she's telling them that Jim doesn't know Chris Watts. We know that's not true, because he was at the sand dunes with them.
I'm going to have her call so-and-so today and make sure everything's still good to go. And I was like, who's that? He's like, the realtor. It's like, oh. Or not today, but
If it ever comes to your mind, just
yeah, I
give me a
doubt it. That
voicemail,
was such
call.
a.
Yeah.
I will try. I don't
Lots of
remember
names.
what it was.
It's fine. It's not that critical. That person may come forward to us anyways, perhaps. So don't worry about it. Let's go back to the phone calls on Monday afternoon.
Yeah. So.
She does not want to talk about those phone calls on Monday afternoon. Mind you, it's just Wednesday, just Wednesday, just around 8:00.
So he's like texting me a lot of this information, and I'm starting to kind of freak out. And it's not like I'm freaked out like, oh, she got murdered. I mean, that is not what I thought. It's like, okay, like the way I looked at this, like apparently his wife had been gone since midday. Well, is when she got like reported missing. I didn't know that. Like the way I looked at this, it was, I got home from work just now. I mean, he didn't say that, but I interpreted, I just got home from work.
But she knew he was texting her pictures of sunflowers at Survey 319, texting her the lyrics to the Battery song, sending him photograph proof that he was there. She was at the Fredericks home that morning. But sure. Okay.
And my family is not here. So when we're texting for like a few hours, like the cop thing was kind of weird, but he's like, Nikki insisted they call the cops. Nikki insisted they call the cops. And I'm like,
then why did you tell them to pawn Shanann's wedding ring?
Okay.
Why did you tell Chris Watts to pawn her wedding ring if you thought she was coming back?
You know, and I'm just trying to figure out, well, like, what role does this woman play in this situation? Like, is she?
Did you know who she was?
No, I don't know any of his people. Like, this has been pretty like tight wrap for a while, which is probably a really good thing. But anyways,
But she looked up Shanann's Facebook, so maybe she did know who some of these people were. I'm just saying.
I didn't know like who she was, and so like I started asking him. I was like, "Well, where do you think your wife is at?" And he's like, "I think she'll be back tonight. Like, I think she's like out with somebody." And he was telling me that they had a disagreement. So I was like, "Well," I remember telling him, I was like, "You should make sure that you have a wait a minute. No. So all that happened, and then it starts getting kind of laid out. And I remember we talked for text for a while and part of this conversation, and then it moved to the phone. And I remember telling him, because he was like, I think she'll just
And if these texts exonerated her, why would she have deleted them off her phone?
be back tomorrow. I think she's just going to be gone for the night, like with a friend, you know? And
Did
like,
he name the friend?
no, he didn't. And like, and because I don't think he made it sound like he didn't know like what friend's house she would be at. And I remember talking to him and I was like, well, maybe it's that Nikki girl. And he's like, well, Nikki called the cops. So why would she be at Nikki's house? I'm like, I don't know, kind of throws her off the trail of where she's at, you know? And it's like, it sounds kind of weird, but it's like, he really made this sound like this woman was just like upset, left the house. And that was probably what he thought happened to her. And so I didn't really put too much like.
Did he tell you the kids were missing as well?
Yes,
with her?
I knew.
Okay.
I mean, which made sense to me because I was like, well, if you were at work all day, I mean, he didn't tell me he got home early. He didn't say that to me. So, I mean, it made sense. Like, if she's going to leave, they should probably go with her. And so, I don't know. I feel like I wish I should have like processed all of this earlier, but I just don't feel like when one of my friends is gone, I'm like, oh my God, they got murdered.
Okay, so let's go to neighbor Nate.
And you know it's still live because it's live.
Mm-hmm.
When something comes up, here.
Well, I know he said the front door he tried going in, but he had the lock up,
That's for
so
the
that
kids,
set
so
it
they don't
off,
get out.
right?
Our remote on the outside doesn't work anymore. It got wet and the whole radio on the back. So yeah, that was it.
All right, appreciate your time.
Thanks. Hopefully something comes up here.
Oh, I think I went too far.
But this is at 148, and then the next one I have is 105, whatever. So nothing, no cars came through because I guarantee with the headlight they picked up the headlight automatically.
If I didn't said that,
Well, I know he said the front door he tried going in, but he had the lock up,
That's
so that set it off, right?
Our remote on the outside doesn't work anymore. It got wet and the whole radio on the back. So yeah.
He just cannot wait to get out of there.
the phone's still there.
I've been leaving out here at 2 in the morning. So my camera.
If you thought your wife and daughters were missing, and your neighbor might have them on camera, you'd be looking at that camera.
There was another, like, all the old blankets and then her her phone was still there.
And this is where I do feel like there was like a little bit of a divine intervention here.
Cause she dropped her off at 1 in the morning, right?
She's done my doorbell said 1:48. She came in.
Okay. It's not on this one, it'll be on this one. This is for bed leaving at 1:48.
So as soon as it picks up motion, it like back off. Okay. I thought you.
That was the start of the video.
Yep. That was 1:48.
In the morning.
You could see Chris's eyes just getting really big there, you guys.
I didn't pick her up going into the house though.
It didn't. And I usually pick him up when he comes walking through here.
Mm-hmm.
I pick him up. So it doesn't show her walking into the house.
He's holding himself. He's hugging himself. He's trying to comfort himself. He knows.
If she would have walked by, we would have saw him. That's okay. The other dogs. They see all these people coming in, they're like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And you know it's still live because it's live.
Mm-hmm.
He actually looks scared. You can see his eyes pop there.
How long does it typically record for?
30 seconds, I believe, at a time. But this is at 1:48, and then the next one I have is at 5 whatever. So nothing, no cars came through because I guarantee with the headlights, it picked up the headlights
Oh, yeah.
automatically.
And my Vivint said that at 5:27, my garage door was left open. But that could have been the sensor as well. It says it was shut during the day. But I think when Nikki's son, he made it try to move the door around, maybe when they were trying to get in the door in the garage door, and it probably broke the laser there. That's because my alarm started going off.
Well, I know he said the front door he tried going in, but he had the lock
Yeah,
up,
that's where
so
the
that
kids,
set
so
it
they don't
off.
hear that.
Right.
And our remote on the outside doesn't work anymore. It got wet and the whole radio on the back.
So yeah, that was it.
Okay. All right. Appreciate your time.
Thanks.
Hopefully something comes up here.
No, if you just want to go talk to him, I'm going to get his info real quick.
So if it wouldn't have been for neighbor Nate, we wouldn't have known what happened.
Right here.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to show you.
But yeah, I thought nothing.
So look on the
Nothing for the rest
screen
of the
right
day.
here, you guys.
That's it.
You can see there's a baby in a heart-shaped embryo. And then right after that, keep looking at the
How
screen.
far along?
You see the explosion. You see an explosion. And then you see a skull and oil. I think that's some divine intervention. Let me know what you think.
Nothing for the rest of the day.
Well, let me move my mouse out of the way. You can see the baby in the heart-shaped embryo sac, an
How far along?
explosion, and then a skull in oil. And we know those girls were dropped in oil tanks. So let me know what you think about all of this, you guys. I'm going to go over and do a members only live stream. If you want to join me over there, if you're a channel member, we're going to do that right now. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to continue to cover this case bit by bit, piece by piece, and just start taking apart all the inconsistencies. Because I do feel like Chris Watts is accountable for what happened to Shanann, Bella, and Cece. I want to make that clear. But I also feel like NK has not been held accountable, at the very least, for obstructing justice, in my opinion, by deleting all those text messages, lying to law enforcement, which is a crime if you lie to a federal officer, FBI agent. And she did an awful lot of lying, in my opinion. And I just feel like they gave her a plea deal. They gave her a walk, a pass on all that lying. So somebody hasn't been held accountable, and in my opinion, that's NK. But let me know what you think in the comment section below, and I will see you on the next Chris Watts live stream. Thank you for coming by to spend a little bit of time with me, and I will see you next time.